This is the Mystery Ranch Guide Lite MT frame. I'm going to talk real quick on how to adjust it for your body, and then I'm going to talk about my opinions on the frame after 2 seasons of use. I've taken this frame and actually this particular pack on a lot of different hunts from Arizona to Alaska, and I can absolutely recommend it, but there are a couple things that I want to mention. So first off, we're going to talk about adjusting the pack to your body. Obviously, like any pack, the first thing you're going to want to do is put it on and tighten up your hip belt. But the most important thing when it comes to adjusting this pack that most people are going to forget is your yoke adjustment, basically the height of the torso. Inside of here, there is a plastic piece. This serves as your support for the yoke, but it also serves as your adjustment tool. So if you slide it in, you pull it out of the pocket and slide it in between the Velcro and the frame. Then you can adjust this yoke up and down and get your height set. If it's just one person, that's going to take a little trial and error, but getting that height set is going to be very important. The cool thing is it's really easy to do in the field. So if you get to the trailhead, you get a mile in and you realize you want your pack a little shorter, you can do that pretty dang easily. Now, the second thing that most people overlook when they're adjusting their pack is the fact that you're always going to have some weight. You're never going to be running this pack with 10 pounds in it. You're probably going to have at least 20 pounds in a pack this size. So, even though this pack is adjusted properly for me right now, and it's got maybe 5 pounds in it, it still doesn't sit perfectly. If you notice, this gap on my shoulder right here is what you really want to avoid. So I'm going to put a 45-pound weight in here, and you can see the difference in how the pack sits on my shoulders. Okay, so obviously 45 pounds is a little excessive. It's just what I had here. But with a little weight, the way that you adjust your hip belt and your yoke is going to be a lot different. So assuming that my yoke height is correct, I'm going to clip up this and bring down my shoulder straps. And that should, without the load lifters tightened, you should be seeing very little gap on the back side of your shoulder blades. And then you'll notice the pack is shifty. So that's what the load lifters are going to do. They're going to stabilize all of that. So then it feels nice and tight. Pack fits me perfectly now. As I said though, you can adjust this in the field, fit it to yourself at home, but when you're on the trail, don't be afraid to play with your adjustments. I like to adjust my pack at the shoulder straps and the hip belt when I'm carrying a heavy load. So if I'm packing meat out and my hips start getting tired, I'll loosen up the hips, I'll put a little more weight on the shoulders, and I'll loosen up the shoulders, put a little more weight on the hips. Adjust my load lifters, just kind of move things around a bit. The one thing I never adjust though is my yoke height once I know where I want it. So that's all we'll cover for adjustment. I am very pleased with the way Mystery Ranch packs can adjust, and I think they give enough adjustment flexibility for a lot of different body types. Okay. I'm going to pull this weight out and we're going to talk about the meat shelf. All right, so one thing I appreciate about Mystery Ranch packs is they have a pretty accessible meat shelf. Doesn't take long to get into it, and if you kill and you're late trying to get out of there, which always seems to happen, you don't waste a lot of time getting into the meat shelf, which is nice. You just undo your side clips, whatever top clips your pack has. Now there's a clip right here. You just push this and it separates these 2 flaps. Then you pull these flaps, where you can see it, over the corner. The other one slides off easy. And now you're into your meat shelf. You can undo these bottom clips too. Whole bag flops open. What they have that I appreciate is this piece of fabric here that you can adjust with these tighteners. So if you want your meat to sit a little lower or a little higher, you can have this be the bottom. Some packs don't have a bottom holder for your meat, and I normally tend to prefer that. So that's a plus. It's pretty simple. Your bag holds the meat in place, so there's no cross straps. You use the straps on your bag to hold the meat in place and just kind of sandwich it there. Something I ended up doing because of that is I put some extra straps underneath these highest clips, and these straps are actually going to go to the loops that they provide on the bags right here. So what you're supposed to do is pull these off. They unclip pretty easily, and clip them back here and connect them like so. What I ended up doing is adding this strap and still using this to come over top of my pack so that I can cinch down my pack if it's not very loaded. Now, like I said, the bag is the only thing holding your meat in other than these two straps. So these will hold your bag up, and then anything that's in your bag is gonna get a little bit squished because that's what's being used to keep your meat in place, but it does do a good job at keeping the meat in place. This frame has enough width to it that when you have a full-size elk quarter, you're not overhanging the pack. The frame adds enough stability to the quarter that you can pack it pretty easily, unlike some of the more narrow frames where you feel like you might be kind of falling off a bit if your strap is coming way out here and back to your frame. So I'm going to talk real quick about pros and cons. I'll start with the pros. This frame is very well built. You can tell even in the stitching, everything's tucked in. The material is smooth. It's held up super well. Like I said, I've got 2 years of heavy use out of this pack, and it still works very well. There's very few signs of wear other than dust and sun fading. It's been pretty durable for me. I've got one hole here that was just because I strapped it to a four-wheeler rack wrong and it rubbed through. Other than that, it is a very durable pack. Now, one thing I will mention, I haven't personally had this issue, but Austin Atkinson, who runs these packs a lot, has had this issue. The frames, the vertical stays on the frame, he's had where this will actually kind of rub through and that vertical stay will pop out. And this only happened to him once, and it was a pack that was very well used. He should have caught it beforehand, he said, but that vertical stay popped out and made the pack pretty much useless. So definitely, if you've got one of these packs and it's well used, keep an eye on that. I've only heard of this happening once. I don't think it's a common thing. I think that's more Austin's hard on his gear. In terms of comfort, I really like the 5-piece hip belt. I feel like it holds you really nicely. There's contact all the way around your hip, so you don't get those hot spots on the pointier parts, especially when you're a thinner guy like me. I appreciate a hip belt that conforms to you well. It definitely holds the weight, and because it's got the width to it, it's got this support, it tends to be pretty stable. It doesn't roll on you or twist too much. It's pretty stable when you're carrying heavy loads. I will say a little more padding on the shoulder straps would be appreciated, but it does just fine. I'm not sure why they chose to go with this yoke style shoulder strap, unlike most packs that have individual shoulder straps, but I can't say I've noticed a ton of difference. In terms of comfort, in terms of like actually wearing the pack, I have no qualms with this design. And the last thing that I'll mention is the lumbar pad. They use a smooth enough material that it'll shift, kind of hard to say, but it'll shift with your shirt instead of holding onto it. So I've used packs before that have more of a rubbery lumbar pad with the idea that it'll stay on your back better. You don't want that. You want something that'll move because your pack is going to be shifting on your back. And if it's rubbery, it's going to hold on to whatever your shirt is, especially if you're wearing merino. It's going to hold on to that base layer and you're going to have a rash on your lumbar, and that's going to be really bad. So haven't noticed that with this pack. I'm definitely happy with the build quality and the materials used. Now we're going to get into the cons of this pack, and I'll start with the meat shelf. One of the cons that I would say, I like this piece of fabric here that allows you to adjust your load height, but they've got a crossbar in front of it so that you can't bring it up quite as high as I would like to sometimes. I want that meat to be riding, you know, right about at the top of the hip belt, and it rides just below that with the way that this is designed. Small thing, but definitely something to mention. The big thing that I wish this pack had, or this frame had, was cross straps. So I don't like sandwiching my meat between my bags. Sometimes I've got things in my bag that I don't want to have to squish, and if I'm packing meat, I want to be able to get into my pack without undoing the meat. So I like having at least 2 straps that come along this way and suck your meat to the frame, and then you use the pack to sandwich it additionally. Pretty low cost in terms of weight and space to add some extra straps. I actually have, there's enough space in these loops to fit a strap. I've done that before, but I wish that it came with it. I don't see a whole lot of downside to that. Now, one more thing is the frame itself. After some use, it definitely twists. And when it's loaded, when you're heavy, you don't really notice that. And you want a pack that will move a little bit with you because your body twists, right? But what I would say the con is to that twisting frame is the noise. And you can hear it. Granted, I haven't washed this pack in a long time. So there's dust in there. I'm sure there's ways to mitigate that noise, and I've tried. It does always come back. Mystery Ranch packs do squeak a bit. Now, it's not the lightest frame on the market, but I think weight in a backpack should be a little bit negligible. You should be much more focused on how the pack and the frame fit your body than you are on the weight. So I'll take features and fitment and comfort at the cost of an extra pound or even 2 over the lightest pack available. The last thing I'll mention as a con is I like the stiff belt for comfort, for use, but it is tough to fly with. So when I've taken this pack on hunts up to Alaska, you've got to kind of fold these around, and this is really rigid as opposed to most other packs that have a 3-part waist belt. You've just got your lumbar, and then your hip straps will flop around when they're not being used. So you can kind of tighten them up a little more. It's a small thing, even throwing it in the truck, this kind of takes up a little more space, but something I figured I'd mention after using it for so long. Now that's about all I have to say about this frame. Mystery Ranch has a lot of different pack options, and I've got a video that breaks down all of them. You can click it in the card above. So if you're wondering which Mystery Ranch pack to buy, check out that video. It'll go through the bag options, the storage, all of that. If you're curious about the frame, I would definitely recommend it to a friend. I like this frame. I've used it. I've packed out over 100 pounds before with it, and it's held up. It does really well. It's durable, it's comfortable, and they sell these bags at a pretty good price point. So if you're looking for a new pack, definitely consider the Mystery Ranch lineup. If you enjoyed this video, hit the like button, drop a comment. If you have any questions, we'll try and respond to them. Subscribe to our channel if you want to get more content like this, and thanks for watching.